Well, I want to share that I signed a bad contract with a label, my very first time getting a major placement. And in my mind, and I was in a similar situation. I was young, I was a college student. What's going down is the, oh, should we go?
Yeah, I'm good.
This is off to a rough start. What's going down is CJ Payne One. It's the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast, episode number 30. I want to say 37.
Yeah, I think it is 37, getting up there. These weeks go by fast, man. And I encourage. There's a lot of people that want to start podcasts and they're hesitant to start, but once they start and get in the groove of things, it just kind of becomes routine and it's kind of fun for us. Well, I don't want to speak for you, Payne, but it's definitely something that I don't mind doing and sometimes look forward to doing. Recording these every Thursday.
No, it's fun. It will be a lot more fun once my cough is completely gone. This is, I think, week 4 of me having intermittent coughing fits.
It's all bad.
Yeah, well, I'm isolating myself, so that's all I can do. So let's briefly. I don't know how briefly this is going to be because I have some information in front of me I wanted to talk about because I think this is actually a much more interesting situation than maybe the media is making it out to be. The Megan Thee Stallion lawsuit slash contract negotiation renegotiation scandal with her label 50. What is it? 1501. Yeah, 1501.
So the only thing, and I think we touched on this last week, and we talked about it during our live session this past Monday with some friends of mine, Edith Bowe and Stanley Green, who run a successful management company called Architect Management. That everybody's weighing in now, right? Like there are a few details about the deal here and there. Carl Crawford, who runs that label, he's saying it's a good deal. I saw his interview in Billboard. He's saying that it's a good deal. There's people online saying it's a bad deal. At the end of the day, what I always tell artists, I just want you to understand these deals, right? A good deal for you might be a bad deal for somebody else, right? You just need to make sure you understand what you're signing and make sure you understand the long-term effects of what you're signing, right? Because there's a lot of people that can weigh in and say, good deal, bad deal, and you should listen to your team and to your lawyer in that regards. But just make sure you understand, ask as many questions as you need to, so that you understand every word of the contract and you're never in doubt about what you're signing. And that's just what I want to continue to drive home. I'll beat the dead horse until it's dead 5 times. Like that is what I just want artists to understand.
Well, I want to share that I signed a bad contract with a label, my very first time getting a major placement. And in my mind, and I was in a similar situation. I was young. I was a college student, kind of parallel to Megan, except she was signing a much more consequential deal because she's an artist and she's going to be locked in for a longer period of time. I was just, rather than a recording artist, I was a producer doing work for hire for a label. But I thought I did everything right. I didn't know what I was doing, but I thought I did everything right in the sense that I got a lawyer and I, made sure that the lawyer looked over the contract. And beyond that, I was kind of thinking that was just that's what I had to do. And that was it. Now I heard some murmurings about Meg Thee Stallion that she did have a lawyer. I think these are rumors. So I don't want to address the rumors as though they're fact, but one of the rumors I heard was that she did have a lawyer, but the lawyer worked for the label or the lawyer was somehow tied into the label. And I feel like I was in a similar situation when I signed my agreement. Not that I signed used the lawyer that worked directly for the label I was working for, but I know he represented some pretty big artists. I mean, top tier recording artists some of whom were signed to the label he was negotiating my contract with. So in my young, naive head, I'm thinking, oh, that's good. He's already in. They're going to treat him more fairly. Then he also mentioned that he knew the lawyer of the artist to whom I was selling the beat. And I thought, yeah, that's good. He knows the guy. They're going to give him a fair deal. Little did I know, all it meant was, number one, because he's tied into the label, somebody like me, he's not going to risk his relationship with the label or with the other lawyer for someone like me who's a nobody. And number two, it means he's definitely not going to rock the boat because he has clients that are tied into the label. So if he rocks the boat on my behalf to try to give me a better situation, that could just make his life a little more difficult when dealing with these people that he has to work with on a day-to-day basis. So I ended up spending about $1,000 on this guy to to just look over the contract, sign off on it. He didn't explain any of it to me. And then after the fact, when I start going through it and learning what these terms mean and learning what tends to be a more common deal, I realize that he did a terrible job. And I remember emailing and finally it got to the point, I think I sent him a couple emails. It got to the point where he called me up and cussed me out. It was like, why do you keep emailing my assistant? You know, you did this, you sampled, you're a thief, you did that. I'm like, yo, why? This isn't what I expected this to be. So in that situation, I don't blame the label at all. I blame the legal representation. But after that, obviously I didn't retain him. After that, I started working with a different lawyer who I knew before she passed the bar. And that's an entirely different dynamic because I just call her up and say, hey, what are they proposing? And she goes, well, this, and this. Okay, red line this, red line that. I think we should do this. What do you think? It's an actual dialogue. And that's what you described. So I'm telling this story as a cautionary tale that there are certainly lawyers out there that aren't a good fit for you. The same way, you can't work with every artist, so you can't work with every manager, you can't work with every lawyer. We've had a couple lawyers on here, Carl Folks, Adam Friedman. These are guys that are clearly pretty passionate about entertainment law when it comes to producers. So if you're a producer, great. There are entertainment attorneys out there that are more experienced working with recording artists. So I would say, do the research and form relationships with them early on, not when you're 3 days away from having to sign paperwork for a release. Get the conversation started with these entertainment attorneys, and just so you know who they are and whether or not they're a good fit once it's time for you to actually hire them for a service.
You said you didn't ask any questions. Is there anything that you could have done to make the experience different? Should you have asked questions? Did you have questions about it?
It happened really quickly. I think my biggest mistake was playing into the label's game, which was that you need to sign this within 24 hours. So I scrambled, got the attorney, and he just signed off on it. So yeah, absolutely. And the same way, I think a big reason why people aren't very sympathetic to Megan Thee Stallion is because she flat out said she signed something she didn't understand. Here I am saying the same thing. So I don't need people to be sympathetic towards me and say, oh wow, you really got jerked and that's so terrible. I do feel as though if I'm giving someone $1,000 they should at least say, hey, do you know what this stuff means? That
what in the contract do you feel like what specifically was bad about the deal in your opinion? Like how did you get screwed over?
I had no point bump, which I didn't know what the hell a point bump was at the time. And we knew that album was going to reach a certain threshold of success. It was just a given. So I should have gotten a royalty point bump. Then,
so explain to the people what that means. Because if you didn't know, then I'm sure a lot of people don't know. Yeah.
So any contract I've signed after that has had a point bump stipulation. But basically, you agree to a certain royalty rate. I think. I don't want to use the word standard because of what Carl Folks said, but I think commonly in these scenarios it's about 3%. Mine was lower than that. And so what they do is, and I should have gotten a higher one. That's something that I wish I had known about, and I wish the lawyer had just kind of done for me, knowing what was common. But what they'll do is that they'll put something of a stipulation in there that if the album sells, say 500,000, that royalty goes from 3% to 4%. So now you're making more. If it hits platinum, if it hits 1 million units sold, then that goes up to 5. So it's like a bonus because you did a great job producing a commercially successful project. So that part, there was no point bump. That actually would have helped me out on the back end payments. The advance was low, very much lower than what's average. And I was a newer producer, so I didn't know what was average. You know, I'm isolated from the music business at that point. I'm not talking to other producers, so I'm kind of in my head. Well, I'm going to pay this lawyer, and he's has so much experience. He's just going to get it done, even if it's boilerplate, even if it's like now $10,000 advance, point bump at 500,000 sold. Really, just kind of givens when it comes to those kinds of negotiations. I didn't like how the sample clearance conversation went, because I was excluded from that, but then I come to find out that that's really kind of standard practice in most cases, not in all. I talked to Deborah Manis Gardner, and she told me that Eminem, an artist at his caliber, the highest selling rapper of all times, actually shares sample clearance with the artist. Well, the artist I produced for didn't, nor did his lawyer, and nor did my lawyer push for it. I talked to S1 recently. He was on Music Entrepreneur Club, which is a really good conversation. And it sounded as though Kanye West had the same situation where he shares the sample clearance cost. They take a collective hit. So it's like if the producer's getting hit for publishing by the person they sampled, then the artist is going to take an equal hit because it's a shared song. You know what I mean? So not every artist does that, but that I feel like that should be a part of the conversation, period. And I don't think it is. So there were a couple other points that I wasn't happy with, but most of all, I just wasn't happy with the communication. I wasn't happy with the way the lawyer treated me. It felt as though the lawyer just wanted nothing to do with me, and it was transactional. Once he got the money, I just needed to shut up and move on. You know what I mean? So that was what was disappointing to me. And so I think it's a little sometimes not usually, this is just my first experience, but sometimes it's a little more complicated than just get a lawyer. So that's why I think we're always saying network with these lawyers, figure out who they are. You don't want to just work with anybody, because not everybody specializes in entertainment law, and people who are in entertainment law might not specialize in what it is that you need from them. If you're a producer, they might not specialize in what a producer agreement should contain.
Well, that's not unlike any other service that we hire, right? Like if you need a plumber, do you just like go into, you just go down the list and just pick any plumber? No, you're asking your friends if they've used a plumber that done a good job. You're on Yelp looking at the reviews. Like, so again, this is not unlike hiring somebody to do anything else. Like, so you got to know that there's good and bad managers, good and bad lawyers, good and bad artists. Like I didn't think I was going to share this, but I think that I should, and I'm not going to share his name. But I was recently in a meeting where the guy says that he purposely gives bad deals now because people have hurt him in the past, right? So he'll sneak things, or his contracts are set up a certain way, and he says, hey, if the artists don't catch it, then the artists don't catch it. But it's because he's been, I guess, just kind of jaded by the industry because he went through some bad. I looked at him kind of sideways because I think that's out of pocket. We got to break that cycle. But just know that, you have to develop like and hopefully that's what we're doing with the MEC, is just developing a community, right, of just kind of good energy, good people. At the end of the day, some bad things are going to happen here and there, but we have to mitigate that risk as much as we can. So join the MEC, join our Facebook group, ask people before you get involved with them, what's going on. And the good thing, Payne, is like the bad deal you signed is like a one-off song. Like it's not a deal for 4 or 5 albums that's gonna, take you from your late teens, early 20s, all the way into your 30s.
Yeah, well, I mean, the sad thing is, for some people, their first deal might be their last. So you do want to make sure that it's the best possible, because you might have a hit that goes 10 times platinum and never get another place. I mean, that kind of thing, it's not common, but it does happen. For me, fortunately, that was my first of many, but it was certainly my most successful, so commercially speaking. So it wasn't my most lucrative, but it was my most commercially successful release. So I wish I had had a better lawyer. But to pick up on that attitude, that whole, well, people have hurt me in the past, so I'm just gonna hurt them. Well, number one, this is like toxic relationship talk 101. This is the type of stuff you hear on these reality TV shows about how, there's an abusive boyfriend. And it's, well, I've been hurt in the past. And it was like, oh, look at this bitch ass dude. So I'm not gonna be nice or forgiving towards people. Like, I've been through the ringer in this business, and I'm not out here trying to backstab people just because someone hurt me. But someone tweeted me that like an hour ago saying, because we were talking about, there was somebody, Urban Beats Daily, who I guess scraped 1 million emails off of social media and just emailed all of us the same thing. It was a really poorly worded email. It's like, hey, if you're a producer, join my team. My bad if you're not a producer. If you're not a producer, buy my beats. So I posted it, and like 100 people replied immediately saying, I got the same email. That's another conversation. That's not why you scrape emails. You're an idiot if that's what you think the purpose of scraping emails is. But anyway, someone replied and said, the thing is, when someone actually reaches out with a genuine conversation, half of you don't even respond, or if you do, it's with a generic response. It goes both ways. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't go both ways. Some people feel as though if they've been crossed or hurt or disrespected in the past, that's a green light for them to act like an asshole. It's not. You're weak-minded if that's how you act, and you become a toxic person when you're operating based on the disrespect you received. So I don't. I mean, it seems like common sense, and with all the talk about toxicity and just really shitty behavior, you would think people would at least try to hide that. But no, people are out here celebrating that. Like you said, with your interaction with the person who will remain unnamed. I'm glad I don't know his name. But that some people just openly say that this is how they operate. And to me, it's 180% trash.
Yeah. And just going back to email etiquette, even if you reach out to somebody in a professional manner, and you fill out and you feel like it's an appropriate email and you don't get a response, just because you reached out professionally and had a great tone and had proper spelling, whatever you think it is, that doesn't mean that you're owed a response. Like, nobody owes you a response. So you should always reach out to people professionally and, with messaging that you think will resonate. But if you don't get a response, you're probably hitting that person up because of something, right? Or you want to work with that person, or they have something that you think could be of value if you develop a relationship. If that is the case, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people that feel the same way about that person. So that person's probably receiving, hundreds, thousands of emails, right? So just because you reached out professionally, that doesn't mean you are owed a response, right? So I just want to make sure that people don't start developing any type of, negative energy just because they're not getting response. To this day, like I reach out to a lot of people where I don't get a response, and I feel like I've done a decent amount, and I feel like, I have a lot to bring to the table if this person does hit me back. But I don't ever get mad if they don't, because I know they probably got other stuff going on, and it's cool. It goes back to the post that I made about being proactive, proactively patient, right? So being proactive in the sense that I'm going to be planting a lot of seeds. I'm going to be developing a lot of relationships. Some in the beginning stages where I'm just sending emails or we're just interacting via text or whatever. Maybe that person never hits me back. Maybe that person hits me back next year when something comes across their table where they feel like it's a perfect fit. But in the meantime, I'm going to be doing a lot of other shit. So I'm patient in terms of watering these seeds, and hopefully they grow. Some grow next week, some grow 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. But I'm always like doing something. I'm never being dependent on one potential relationship, one skill set, one resource. And that's the mindset that young people need to have, is just, if people are not getting back to you, just continue to reach out to other people and build yourself independently and do your own thing. And that's why I try to encourage young people to do, because that's the way you have to be in this industry.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just keep thinking about the whole concept of, like being a woman on social media and you get the "Hey beautiful" text from some dude with like an extra nostril and like half an eyeball, and you don't respond to him, and then his next message is "Bitch, you ugly anyway." And trust me, if you have female friends who use social media, they will have an inbox full of DMs just like that. And it's just this whole, I guess we could talk about how people are raised to behave poorly in another podcast. But speaking of women, back to Meg Thee Stallion, did you read any details that are being reported about her contract, the specifics?
I think I just remember Carl Crawford saying that it was like a 60-40 split, the 60 going back to the label, and that is there some type of shared ownership in the masters, and I think that's what he was saying was so unique about her deal. That's why it was a good deal. But then it was also like a 70-30 split, 70 in her favor, like on like touring and stuff like that.
So he was saying that himself. So that was correct then, because I read on Pitchfork that it was a 60-40 deal. Crawford and 1501 gets 50% of her publishing, 30% of her touring income, as you said, 30% of her merchandising, control of merchandising rights, and a percentage that they didn't specify of passive income, which they're saying would involve sponsorships and endorsement deals.
And I also don't know, because I think he mentioned that he invested like $2 million in her.
Oh my God.
So, if and I don't, she may refute that, right? She may not be like, they didn't put 2 million. They didn't put 2 million up. But if you don't have anything going on and somebody puts $2 million into your career for a 60-40 split, I would take that in a heartbeat. Like I would take that. Like I would take that in a heartbeat. Like, but I don't know. We don't know if that was it. Did she not have anything going on? Did she have a little buzz? Was it really $2 million? Like, and of course, there's other terms to be negotiated, but paying with just off that. Like, if you're an artist that's new to the game,
I know where we're going. I'd take it. Yeah.
$2 million invested in your career for a 60-40 split in the label's favor.
Well, look, something where look, Megan Thee Stallion can rap. I like her songs. I play them all the time when I DJ. So I'm not gonna say the label made her. I have no idea what the determining factor of her success was. Because I know if she were trash and they put 2 million in, we wouldn't be having this conversation because we still wouldn't know her. Trust me, money does not make a bad artist good. It just exposes them, and a lot of people think that money is everything. No, Megan is actually there's something about her that gives her star power and her talents there. So, that's what it is. But yeah, it's appealing when you already have and hopefully a label or an investor would know that a person is talented. When you have that potential, which would be a combination of all of those factors: the talent, the look, the personality, the work ethic. Then yeah, that money will help quite a bit. So I'm certain that was a major factor in at very least expediting her success.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, but it's always dangerous to get too invested into these stories without knowing all the details. But if that was the case, they really put up 2 million for a 60-40 split, even 70-30 on like the touring or whatever for an artist that if she didn't have anything going on at the time, I'd say unless it was like a lifetime deal where like you can never get out. But if it was like 3 albums or whatever, I would be like, hell yeah, you better take that. Like nobody else is putting up anywhere near 2 million.
Yeah, we need to know what those terms. I think knowing the term would really determine how I feel about the deal.
Right. So the last thing I wanted to talk about today, I guess NBA Youngboy has been on house arrest, and then when he got off house arrest, he realized that he still made like millions of dollars without having to tour. So I think he went live on IG, or he posted an IG. I think, even though I hate saying his name, Academics posted it, but NBA Youngboy was saying like, I may not ever tour again. Why do I have to tour? I just made millions of dollars sitting on house arrest. Why do I have to tour? And I mean, you tour more. It's not just the money that you're getting from that show, right? Like it's still developing a relationship with your fans. Like touring is more than just the money that you make in terms of developing your brand and like really solidifying your that fan relationship. So it's more than just that. But hopefully when artists see this video and hear him, it's like, because the general public thinks that artists make all their money touring, right? And that is true for some artists, and I talk about this all the time, but like every artist is different. Every artist has a different revenue mix, right? So some artists are dependent upon touring. And I think the artists that are dependent upon touring are more so like, well, one type of artist that's dependent on touring is like major label artists that get they get a very small percentage of their royalties, right? So if you're in a major label deal and the label's taking like, a lion's share of your royalties, then of course you're going to have to get it other ways, and touring is a way to make money. And then there's independent artists that have developed touring history that do well touring as well, and that surpasses their streams. But there's also independent artists that stream really well and make as much, if not more, than their touring, right? So I just want to make sure that artists understand that there's different ways to navigate the industry. There's different ways to find success because there's a lot of different revenue streams these days. And I know I'm rambling, but I do want to share just kind of on a personal note, just like when I was running the label with Hobson, right? When you're deciding how to set up your business, you just need to make it clear to the people that are part of your business how you're going to move forward. Because when I got involved in the label, I thought we were both going to be putting our foot on the pedal and going as fast as we can. We're going to try to collect everything that we can, right? But, shortly into this, Hop realized that he didn't like touring, and touring was going to be was a pretty big part of our business. So now that we're taking our foot off the gas on touring from a business owner perspective, it's like, I didn't know that was going to be the case, and it wasn't communicated early that wasn't going to be an option. And I never confronted him and said, no, you got to be on the road. I would never force anybody to be on the road, but it's disappointing from a business owner perspective that we're not maximizing a huge revenue stream because now you don't like the tour. You said it was something that you wanted to do, most independent artists kind of dream of being on stage and touring the world. And that's what he dreamed of doing. That's what he wanted to do. That's what I thought, was going to be a big part of our business. and then that immediately kind of gets chopped off because we have to limit, our tours, or we can't, properly plan them. So the message in that is, make sure that you communicate with your team how you want the business to be structured and what you are comfortable doing. And as soon as you find out that you're not comfortable doing one thing, communicate that to the business people, the manager, the label head, or whatever, so that you guys can get back on the same page, and nobody develops any negative feelings.
I feel like if streaming back then were what it was today or what it is today, God, you guys would have been making a killing, and maybe he wouldn't have had to tour.
You never have to tour, but it definitely, like I said before, like touring and having that live show. Like, what would like Travis Scott be without touring, right?
Yeah,
Like,
true.
I mean, he makes good music, but his brand has like really kind of gotten taken to the next level for creating this experience with his live show, for having a great live show. And I think that brings just much more attention to his platform, right? And it just, when you have fans that only get to hear you, of course they're still fans. They might be diehard fans, and they might get close to you in other ways. There might be a documentary, you might be on a reality show, whatever. But when they get to see you live, like, that just takes it to a whole nother level for a lot of fans. So don't just look at touring as the check that you get from that show. And that's kind of what I want to emphasize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me rephrase that. Maybe he could have toured a lot less, because I feel what he is expressing, even though I don't know him. Touring can get really, really, really rough on a person. To this day, I don't know how Tech9 does it, because he tours nonstop. I don't know how. I don't understand it. I tour, like, by the second week, I'm just ready to jump off a cliff.
Well, I mean, so I know Tech, and from what I understand, he loves it. Like,
Yeah.
he loves being on the road. And, like, from my perspective, like, I'm not talking about like when you just start out touring, like, that's rough, right? Like, when
Yeah.
you're kind of slumming it, you're maybe like 5 or 6 cats packed into a van, and you're going from city to city. Your van's breaking down. Somebody gets sick, everybody gets sick. Like that's the kind of touring that's rough. However, when you get to a level where everything's comfortable, you got your own hotel room, you're riding in a nice bus. If you think about it, like, you're really only working like 2 hours a day. Like, that, literally all you have to do is perform and maybe go to a meet and greet. So other than that, you're probably asleep or on the internet or social media. So like, you can't, if you're on that level of touring, like, the fans shouldn't have sympathy for you, right? That's not that rough, in my opinion. Some people still think it is rough, because I know that putting on a show is, takes a lot of energy depending on what type of show you have, but you're literally only working 2 hours a day, and the rest of the time, unless you have other responsibilities doing like interviews and stuff like that, like, you're just sleeping on a bus.
But people expect the same thing from you no matter what level you're at.
Yeah.
And so that's the rough part. And I'll say this: if I could tour more often, where I do get my own hotel room and where I don't get sick, I think that would even everything out, and I would never complain about it again. Just those two things. That's all I want. That's all I want out of life.
Yeah. And I don't want artists or people that are more sympathetic to artists to attack me for saying what I just said. I get that, artists have to be on, right? They have to be on. They have to be on for the fans. And it's hard to do that on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, like, that's what you sign up for. And that's the reality of being somebody that has fans. And if that's not the life you want, then, be a plumber. I don't know what to tell you.
Speaking of which, I have a plumber coming over later, and I swear to you, every time I hire a plumber or a carpenter or something, like, damn, I walked down the wrong path. Because I'm about to write this person a $500 check for connecting some pipes. I don't want to minimize what they're doing because I can't do it. But when they do it, I look at it and I was like, that looks incredibly easy given your experience and your skill set. But because you're the only one who knows how to do this, I have to pay you an inordinate amount of money just to perform this task that to you is probably pretty simple and to me doesn't seem simple at all. I wish I knew what you knew. Here I am making beats. Anyway, let's actually. I want to
try doing it yourself, Payne.
No,
You'll probably be broadcasting from a different house next week because your shit's gonna be flooded.
No, I'll be on a flotation device with my webcam on. I don't think the water levels will get that high. I know where the shutoff valve is. Let's end on this because I actually think I know you don't want to talk about DJ Academics, but he actually said something. I watched his video about the Megan Thee Stallion situation. He said something that I think you would agree with. So let's have some peace and harmony at the end of this episode. He said about Megan Thee Stallion going public, and actually about Tory Lanez going public too, about their grievances with their label. He said, an artist can make a public statement and people look at the label as evil, and the label only has one point of leverage, which is that they own the rights to the artist's music. So if they prevent the artist from releasing music, it's cutting off their nose to spite their face.
I guess. I mean, in these type of situations, it's like, it's oftentimes just a lot of ego, right? Well, maybe that label, if you're talking about just that independent label, of course I would agree with him. But like, if it's a situation with like a major label, like there's typically not one artist that makes, a majority of the money for the label. So, that leaves room for just like more ego. Well, even this situation, even I think with 1501 or whatever the label's called, like it's just a lot of emotion, a lot of ego gets involved in stuff like this because sometimes like people really do feel like they did the right thing, like me. Like I really feel like you could disagree because we can go back to disagreeing what we think is fair. Like I could just have a different opinion on what is fair. You have a different opinion, but that doesn't mean either one of us is evil. I don't know these people to know if they're like evil people, but with differences in fair opinions and ego can just lead to a lot of lawyers getting paid, so it is what it is.
Well, we're going to see a photo of Dame and Academics playing basketball sometime soon. On that note, appreciate you tuning in. MECtour.com, musicentrepreneurclub.com, collab for the crown, details coming soon. We're really excited about that. We'll catch you next time, next episode. Peace.